This is the start of a video series in which I will take a look at different pieces of popular pirate media and analyze the history in them, starting out with the most influential pirate movie of this century, Curse of the Black Pearl. My biggest gripe with Curse of the Black Pearl isn't the movie itself. If you changed a few scenes and costumes, I'd be totally fine with this movie. It would still be my second favorite, but a much closer second. My biggest gripe with the movie isn't with the movie itself, rather with how it has influenced the popular perception of pirates. Allow me to explain. The average viewer will see this movie and think, oh, this is what a pirate looked like in the golden age of piracy. No, this is what a pirate looked like in the year 1728, when Curse of the Black Pearl takes place. The golden age of piracy is often defined as a roughly 100-year period. 1630 to 1730 is what I use. Technology, fashion, and society changed. A pirate in 1725 would not have looked the same as a pirate in 1680. But your average pirate enthusiast won't notice this. Then they'll go on and make their own pirate book or movie, and whoop-de-doo, now every pirate is an ugly 40-something old man with a tricorn hat. In 1728, the golden age of piracy was pretty much at an end. There were next to no more active pirates, they had all been hunted down or pardoned, and there were little economic or social incentives in turning to piracy. This is portrayed accurately in the movie. In one of the first scenes, we see a trio of executed pirates gibbeted outside of Port Royal. This was done in real life. After a pirate was hanged, his body was painted with tar and put on display at the docks, both to show people that they were protected from these depraved criminals and to discourage any potential recruits. Furthermore, the Black Pearl is explained as being the last real pirate threat. And the reason they are a threat is because they're ghosts. Had they been mortal, they would have been hunted down and destroyed, like all of the historical pirates. And this happens in the movie. As soon as the curse is lifted, they give up. In the final 30 years of the Golden Age, pirates were a pushover. They relied on merchants to surrender without a fight. Whenever they got caught by pirate hunters, that was it. As Bartholomew Roberts allegedly said, a merry life and a short one. Most pirates were in their mid-20s. Some groups averaged closer to 20, others to 30. I looked up the ages of the pirate characters in the movie, or well, their actors during the time of filming. Most of them were in their late 30s, which is way older than the average pirate. But in the context of this movie, it makes sense, because most of the pirates were cursed 10 years before the movie takes place. If the movie takes place in 1728, the curse would have taken its effect in 1718, when the Golden Age was at its peak, and we had captains like Hornigold, Bellamy, and Blackbeard. And when our pirates would have been in their mid-20s. Cute twinks, not ugly fat dudes with receding hairlines and bad metabolism. Contrary to what some of my viewers think, I personally don't have an issue with supernatural or fantasy elements in a film, if you can put these elements into a historical context. And for Curse of the Black Pearl, they actually did. But if you want to create an authentic experience, you need to understand this context. In the time frame and supernatural context of this movie, it makes sense for the pirates to have sailed for 10 years, to be ugly dudes in their 30s, to wear tricorn hats, for the ships to be steered by wheels, which had now become a common sight on even the smallest of ships, like the Interceptor. 20 years prior, ship wheels were a rarity, and most ships were steered with a whipstaff. So yeah, I don't actually have too many complaints of this movie. Obviously the sword fights are ridiculous, and I mean the costumes are pretty stupid. A lot of the characters wear these cuffed boots, which are entirely a Hollywood invention. Period boots did not look like this, and were only worn when riding a horse. Sailors and pirates went barefoot or wore shoes, with or without socks. The soldiers wear knee-high boots, which seem to be a misinterpretation of gaiters, a sort of leg cover which soldiers wore in the period. Otherwise, the uniforms appear pretty accurate. Here's a picture of them compared to a period illustration from 1742. I couldn't find anything earlier. The sailors appear to be wearing period-appropriate clothing, maybe a bit colorless. It was common for English sailors to wear striped red jackets, red pants. Everything here is just grey and white, and blue instead of red. The hats are the biggest offender. They seem to be from the late 18th century. Most of the pirates are seen wearing tricorn hats, also called cocked hats in the period. For the movie, it makes sense. Sailors began wearing tricorns in the 1730s. However, they wore them backwards, the flat end forward, the peak backwards. This was probably as to not obscure their vision of above, but tricorns were never a sailor's fashion during the actual Golden Age. They wore these regular round hats, often folded in a variety of ways, or even cut like a baseball cap. Another point is that the pirates look radically different from the average sailor, which they wouldn't have done in real life. Their clothes would also have been more colorful. Sailors wore striped or checkered shirts and colored pants. The major difference between a pirate and a sailor was that a pirate was always armed. Sailors didn't own their weapons, pirates did. And we do see the pirates in the movie equipped with swords, cartridge boxes, very important. Elizabeth Swann wears a corset that is uncomfortable to say the least. The corset is used as a literary device to show how constrained she is by her place in society as a woman and the daughter of a governor. Corsets in real life weren't uncomfortable, they wouldn't break your bones or strangle you, and they were even worn by a few men. Governor Swann wears a wig and a coat on all occasions. Caribbean gentlemen only wore these on formal occasions and Sundays. Otherwise, they wore a kerchief tied around their head, a hat, and a vest with a shirt. Too many layers were too hot in the Caribbean. This is probably going to piss a lot of people off, since racial portrayal is a hotly debated topic. You can probably guess what my opinions are. Stick to the history. And in the case of this movie, there's definitely a case of whitewashing. Most of Jamaica's historical, and current population for that matter, were black. Mostly slaves, but a couple of freemen too. They could have made the servant maid or butler black, and added some black laborers in the street. We do see a lot of blacks aboard the Black Pearl, which is accurate to how a pirate crew would have looked like in this period. Olivier Levasseur had a crew of 64, 32 of which were black. Edward England had 180 men, 50 of whom were black. You get the idea. I'm not going to spend any time analyzing the characters in depth, in this video at least. Instead, I intend to make separate videos on the characters worth analyzing from the perspective of pirate history. Those include Jack Sparrow, Hector Barbossa, and Blackbeard. Neither will I discuss the ships in this video, that's for its own episode. I gotta say that I like the dialogue in this movie a lot. The characters for the most part speak in an authentic manner, except that one time in the opening when Elizabeth Swann says "okay", a modern phrase. There is also a difference in how the pirates speak compared to the landlubbers. Historically, sailors, and pirates by proxy, were known to use nautical terminology intermingled with their regular speak, and they often spoke in a poetic manner, like Barbossa. It's miles ahead of the dialogue in Black Sails. I'm sorry, Bennerson.
Get on with it, motherfucker.
Curse of the Black Pearl is heavily inspired by two previous pieces of media. The plot is based on the video game Monkey Island, which the writers were initially going to make a movie from, and the setting is based on Captain Blood. Captain Blood was a fairly accurate novel, but the problem with basing Curse on it is that Blood was set in the late 1600s, and Curse in the late 1720s. It's almost 40 years between them, and a lot changed in this time frame. Two of the key locations in Captain Blood are the towns of Port Royal and Tortuga. Surprise, those are the key locations in Curse. Let's take a look at Port Royal. Between 1655 and 1670, Port Royal on Jamaica was the capital of Caribbean piracy. The English governors sponsored attacks on their Spanish enemy, but after England and Spain signed a peace treaty, Port Royal began cracking down on piracy. And in 1692, the town was destroyed in an earthquake. In 1728, the once extravagant city was little more than a slum, often compared to the poorest neighborhoods in London, the places where you were liable to get shanked over a pack of ciggies, or I guess snuff in the 1700s. Worst of all, Port Royal literally smelled like shit. Jamaican authorities emptied their chamber pots in a waste heap located upwind from the town. The harbor was still valuable, so the ruined city remained a hub for seamen, but far from the splendor we see in the movie. Some pirates were hanged at Port Royal, like Charles Vane and John Rackham. But for a more important and splendorous city on Jamaica, they should have chosen Kingston. Neither did Port Royal look anything like in the movie. In the movie, it's located in a shallow bay with rocky cliffs. In real life, it was situated on a narrow sandbar, jutting out into a large bay on Jamaica. Next we have Tortuga. This was the first organized base for pirates in the Caribbean, but that was almost 100 years before the events of the film. By the 1660s it was replaced by Port Royal as the most important hub for pirates, and in the 1670s, Petit-Goâ. By the 18th century, Tortuga was just home to a few tobacco planters, fishermen, and hunters. In 1728, pirates did not have any free ports in the Caribbean. They had nowhere to go. 10 years prior they had Nassau in the Bahamas, but in 1719 it was retaken by the British Crown. Their only option was to remain at sea, trade with Indians or smugglers, or sail to Africa. Pirate bases lingered a bit longer in West Africa and Madagascar, but there was nothing like Tortuga in the Pirates movies, where pirates could just dock, party, and recruit freely. Historically, Tortuga was the name of the island. The town was called Cayenne. It was a very harsh and rocky island, so its appearance in the film is pretty accurate. Central to the plot is the treasure hidden on Isla de Muerta. Though the wiki says it means Island of the Dead, it actually means Island of Death. The correct translation would be Isla del Muerto, and there are several Caribbean islands going by this name. One of these was used as a temporary base for buccaneers in 1687, though they didn't know its name, and likely would have avoided it if they knew. It was named such because from a distance, the rocky island looked like a dead man lying down. Another Isla del Muerto relevant to our discussion was a volcanic tip in California, discovered by the conquistadors. Here they found nothing but a single corpse. Pretty spooky. The pirates in this movie adhere by a set of principles known as the Pirate Code. In the movies, it is a universal set of rules for all pirates. Barbossa says they are more like guidelines and can prove flexible should need be. Pirates did have a code, known as their Articles of Agreement. Every crew member was made to sign the articles and took an oath to abide by them. Usually they regarded matters of discipline, like not deserting, gambling, stealing from your crewmates, etc. These rules were not universal. Every pirate crew had their own Articles of Agreement, and every one was slightly different in some way. And of course, they were more like guidelines. Some pirates said they never forced anyone to join, but then they did it anyway, because it might be necessary. In the movie, Elizabeth Swann invokes the right of parley, provided to her by the code. The pirates are then obligated to show her mercy. Some pirate codes did ensure the safety of prisoners, without their need to demand it. Some codes even assure the safety of women, and even if they didn't, individual captains might go out of the way to protect female prisoners, such as keeping them in their own cabin, much like Barbossa does. Of course, the threat of sexual violence was always present, and this is indicated in the movie. In the film, the pirate code states that he who falls behind is left behind. This was never a part of historical articles, but should a pirate fall behind of his crew, he'd certainly be abandoned. For example, in 1680, a group of buccaneers abandoned one of their crewmen when they had to make a hasty retreat from the Spanish. It was less of a every man for himself and more of a the good of the majority outweighs the good of the individual. Sink the boat, save the ship. Pirates were pragmatists. The characters in this movie use a few clever tactics to achieve their goals, some of which may have been inspired by history. Jack and William Turner turn over a boat and walk into the sea, the overturned boat giving them a space of air to breathe underwater. I don't know if 2 men would have been enough to keep a boat of that size underwater. They may have needed some weights, but the principle of using an object to hold air underwater was used in diving bells. These were used to recover wreckage. Pirates would sometimes dive for shipwrecks to recover treasure. Sadly, it is quite underrepresented in media, but in Assassin's Creed 4 you can live out your diving bell fantasies. And if you want to grab AC4 at a cheap price, I highly suggest doing it via instant gaming. If AC4 is not up your alley, they probably got any game you can think of available at their site, and at very steep discounts. The reason I partnered up with Instant is because I've used their services personally in the past, and I can attest to its quality. By using their website, you not only get a great game at a cheap price, but you'll support my channel in the meantime. You'll find a link in the video description, and below it, a link to a monthly giveaway, where you have a chance at winning a game for free. Have fun, but please, Remember to play in moderation. Thank you to Instant Gaming. The question is, how would Jack and William release the boat? Would they just drop it? When it flew to the surface, someone would have noticed. Did they lightly tip it over until it got swamped and capsized? If a pirate wanted to reach a ship by stealth, he would have gone under the cover of night, either by boat, though it would have been paddled rather than rowed. This is more silent. He could also have swimmed or used a float, an inflated horse bladder, like a buoy or balloon. In the 1680s, a Spanish Indian used a float in swimming out to a pirate ship, where he tried to sabotage its rudder. William and Jack sabotaged the rudder of a large ship to prevent it from pursuing them. And yeah, this was a common tactic. You could shoot a rudder with cannons or steer up behind it in a canoe and wedge it. Jack and William sailed the Interceptor all on their own to Tortuga. Would 2 men have been enough to handle her? It would have been very hard, and they certainly couldn't have worked all of the sails at the same time. Maybe the forecourse and the gaff. It would probably have been best to recruit 2 or 3 scoundrels in port, or maybe press gang a few of the sailors. Elizabeth Swann and Jack Sparrow are forced to walk the plank. Pirates never did this, they just threw their prisoners overboard. Neither would Swann and Sparrow have survived very long. Ships of the time were often followed by sharks that ate anything thrown overboard. Ropes, hammers, and yeah, people. They are then marooned on a desolate island with nothing but a loaded pistol. Historical pirates practiced marooning as a form of punishment, but the marooned pirate was usually given enough provisions to survive. If your crime was severe enough, like cowardice or desertion, some pirate codes decreed that you would have your ears and nose cut off and left naked on a deserted island. No chance of survival. Pintle and Ragetti are forced to disguise themselves as women to distract the navy. Whilst I haven't found any examples of pirates doing this specifically, ruses and even disguises were certainly used. Smaller pirate ships may disguise themselves as fishing boats. In one instance, a group of Turkish pirates dressed up in European clothes. After all, Turks were known to dress in baggy pants and turbans. The first actual engagement we see in the movie is when the Black Pearl attacks Port Royal. This scene is taken straight from the 1935 Captain Blood movie and has no basis in reality. The Captain Blood scene from the book was based on the French attack on Cartagena in 1697, in which a few buccaneers partook as mercenaries. But the bombardment was carried out by French naval ships, not pirate ships the size of the Black Pearl. The question is, could a pirate ship like the Black Pearl carry guns heavy enough to damage the thick stone walls of a fort? Most pirate ships carried light guns, 4 to 6 pounders, meaning they fired shot weighing 4 to 6 pounds. They were used for damaging enemy crew and rigging. Very few of them carried heavier guns. The Mocha, a pirate ship in the Indian Ocean, very similar to the Black Pearl, was estimated to have carried 16 and 18 pounders. But according to the POTC wiki, the Pearl carried 32 12 pounders. These would not have been enough to damage the walls of a fort. By the mid-18th century, 18 pounders were abandoned by the French Navy because they couldn't damage other ships of the line. And if your cannon can't pierce a thick hull, it definitely cannot go through stone. Forts, on the other hand, had very heavy guns, specifically for sinking attacking ships. So the Pearl would have sunk. Neither did pirates just want to randomly shoot cannons at a city. If pirates did attack a city, it was to plunder it, which is hard to do if it's destroyed. Their goal was to capture the city and hold it ransom. If the ransom wasn't paid, they'd set fire to the city. Again, hard to accomplish if you destroyed everything. If pirates attacked a city, they would have anchored their ship at a secure location and marched on the city by land. They would have fired on the fort with muskets to suppress the defenders and breached the walls with swords and pistols. But by the year 1700, pirates no longer had the fighting ability of doing this. Attacks on forts and cities were unheard of in this era. Captain Blood took place in the 1600s, when buccaneers had the fighting ability and often did attack cities, but not like in this movie. The battle between the Black Pearl and Interceptor is probably one of the best sea fights in pirate cinema. Of course, it has its flaws, like the directors don't seem to grasp how the wind works, but in terms of tactics and technology, it is fairly realistic, and the fight could have gone down like it, more or less. They also use a lot of overlooked technology, like the oars mounted on the Black Pearl. There is just so much to discuss about this battle that I'll have to make its own video about it. And like I said, I will also make videos about the characters that have some history worth discussing. Those are Jack Sparrow, Barbossa, and Blackbeard. I also refrained from discussing the ships in this film because they're getting their own video as well. So yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean? It's pretty accurate. I think what this really illustrates is that you can make a good, historically accurate pirate movie. You just have to remove some stupid things like randomly attacking a castle and improve the costumes a bit. And as long as you have good characters, good cinematography, good music, and a good plot, historical accuracy will only improve the immersion. And there is actually a pirate movie which has all of that, but that's for its own video. Of course, much of the accuracy in Curse might be coincidental, because the sequels don't even come close. Huge thanks to my generous channel members and Patreon supporters. In particular, Cole Freer, Max Dweck, 1660, Michaela Jans, Daniel Stryker, Sea-Dog, Randall DeVere, Old Man Zed, Krillov, and Nick Hooper. If you'd like to interact with me or fellow pirate enthusiasts, please check out the link to our Discord server in the video description. Hope to see you there. Cheers!